Before we begin, thank you very much to Wolfatron 3000 for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. I liked you better than I did Wolfatron 2800. That one was kind of a jerk, but I'm glad the revisions worked out. Thank you very much for supporting. Nothing to really report today, so let's just get on with it. So this is my continued effort to do a top 10 for literally every single year Transformers has been out, rather than just focusing on what my top 10 of 2024 is going to be. So let's actually just roll on. 1985 is where Transformers just opened up. The thing that was supposed to just be a quick cash grab with pre-made toys exploded in the US, and now all of a sudden Takara's vaults were open. Whatever was available was on the table, and yes, Hasbro and Takara finally started making brand new figures for the American market. So this was a bit of a transformative year, no pun intended. It's also a much easier year than the last one we explored, because 1984 had about 24 toys, and a lot of them were small bots as well as repaints, which made coming up with the top 10 a little bit tricky. However, in the year of 1985, we do have a very nice selection of options. So with no further ado, let us begin with number 10, and once again, I feel like I am allotted a one spot to include a mini-bot on this list, but this time it's not just a token inclusion, it's not just a goodwill gesture, it is a deserved spot, because for its price, Powerglide is an awesome little toy. So this little warthog is doing a few things that a lot of the larger jet transformers at the time never really managed to pull off. Number one, it's doing something with the wings outside of just making them a backpack. Going up the side of his body actually does a very nice job of cleaning them up. Gives him a unique look while still giving the Autobots a very rare aerial vehicle mode at the time. However, this is also increased by the fact that he actually has a decent range of articulation for his time. His head can turn, his shoulders are essentially universally jointed, and he's got an elbow bend. It makes him very playable and characterful for a mini-bot. It's a very big departure from the years previous, and even mini-bots from here on out and the rest in 85 kind of failed to measure up to that mark. It's an impressive little bot for something that's supposed to be a budget figure. And yeah, I just plain like Powerglide. So not a bad place to start on the list. When you're talking about one of the best G1 mini-bots, well, that's not a bad place to start. I did mention that flying modes were rare for Autobots back then, but there are a few ways we can get around them while still keeping jets a Decepticon thing. For instance, if it's just built into your car. Traxx is somewhat of a standard car-style Autobot, but he's doing things his own way and doing things differently. Number one, Corvette. So you've already got a very cool vehicle mode. My dad would loved Corvettes, heard about them my entire life, so I might be a little bit biased in that. But I always thought Traxx looked really good. And then we get to the robot mode, and yeah, we've actually got something of a fairly sleek, well-proportioned Autobot car that's doing a pretty good job of using the vehicle's bulk to create the robot bulk. And then you have an inclusion of these wings. And this is not a wheeljack situation where the wings are just to look fancy or something. No, 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 no. If you are unaware, G1 Traxx can put those wings to use in vehicle mode. He is the first Transformer a lot of people had with what we would probably call a flight mode rather than a official like third alt mode. 85 is when people started getting the Omnibots, which could have an alternate vehicle mode that wasn't really a third vehicle mode. So you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. But for the most part, this Traxx actually gave you a lot of variety in play, had a really solid and good look to him, fairly clean in robot mode, all around one of the nicer Autobot cars. If the legs on yours actually stayed still, the springs in them tend to wear out. But you get a lot of value for it. And yeah, out of the Autobot cars for the first 2 years, he's definitely got the most going on. Because Transformers blew up in popularity, Hasbro was left with a bit of a demand that they couldn't meet. They needed larger toys, more complex toys, and things that, well, frankly, Takara just could not provide that quickly. So instead, Hasbro had to go to other robot creators out of Japan and license their figures. Thus, we got the Dorvac released in America as Roadbuster. So, admittedly, I've never been huge on the color scheme of Roadbuster. It is very, like, autumn foresty colors, which doesn't really, like, blend in anywhere. Can't deny it's a cool brick of a vehicle mode. I kind of don't know where someone sits. But the vehicle mode is very different from anything offered in 1985. It's got more of a futuristic and heavy attitude to it compared to a lot of the Autobot vehicles or even the Decepticon vehicles at the time. And definitely a unique look to his robot mode as well that's very well proportioned and exceptionally solid. And all around, like, he's a very, like, chunky, beefy figure that offers, you know, a very different feel than your standard Transformer. It comes, you know, some benefits of coming from a completely different manufacturer. And then you have the real reason he stands out so much, and that is accessory count. Look at how much you get with this boy. You get radars, you get armor pieces, you get backpacks, you get guns, you get missiles, you get roll bar. You even get a sticker sheet that allows you to properly militarize his vehicle mode however you want. And it's a ton of stickers for all kinds of notes, warning messages, you know, number markers, just however you want your Roadbuster to look. You know, this is like the Transformers Prime thing, like the Arms Micron thing in Japan, except done intentionally from the start. So it gave you a higher level of customization, and it made you feel like your Roadbuster was yours. You know, where you and your friend could both play with your Roadbuster side by side and not get the two mixed up, which is kind of a cool thing when you think about it. But yeah, he gets there for options and variety, whether it's accessories or the sticker count. There's a lot of ways to play with your Roadbuster and make it look the way you want it to look. All 5 Dinobots came out this year, so it's only a matter of time before they start showing up on this list. It's just a matter of where, how many, and who. So I will tell you, there is more than one Dinobot on the list, but right now we have to start with the one that's going to get me in the most trouble, because at number 7, I'm putting Grimlock. I'm putting the most popular Dinobot in the number 7 spot. He's not even cracking my top 5. I apologize, but let's just talk truth here. Okay, for starters, yes, Robot T-Rex. One of the coolest things you could possibly come up with as far as a kid's toy. This is absolutely epic. We thoroughly stan Grimlock here. And this is a very nice rendition of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, as we knew them in 1985. However, when we get to the robot mode, this is where the iconic imagery of Grimlock starts. Also is where I'm kind of like putting him a little bit low on the list. So the other Dinobots are very chunky and kibble-ridden. You know, they do have like the similar wings, larger feet. You know, maybe like dino legs hanging off of their arms. Grimlock does a pretty good job of cleaning himself up to the point where the junk hanging off of his back, not only we just kind of know as part of the character now, but he wears it well. It helps his silhouette, I think. I might place him a little bit higher if his head wasn't so far back on his torso. That was always a really weird part to me. But it's a fun little transformation. It's a really cool looking figure. Got the sword, got the gun. And yeah, it's just a beautiful blend of colors on him too. I really like how the colors are blocked out. The gold chest works for me. A little bit of red in the middle. This is just a beautiful figure with a lot of really good balancing going on. Yeah, it's definitely one of the best. Why Takara hasn't recast the mold to run it again, I have no idea. They would make $1 million off of it. 85 is when we started including the most famous gimmicks in Transformers into the lineup, combiners and triple changers. I will tell you, I almost put Devastator in this list on the excuse of the fact that they released it as a gift set, so thus Devastator was the one toy and it just broke down into 6. But I decided, no, No, I can't go that route. That's a little bit too cheap. Oh, no problem with the triple changers, though. Let's talk Astro Train just for a second. So, triple changing is a natural evolution of the Transformers design style, and Astro Train does a pretty good job of it, considering he is one of the first. The shuttle mode, it is probably where he suffers the most, unfortunately. Like, I'm not a fan of how, like, blocky it looks in the front with the nose cone and, like, the obvious panels. So he always looks a little bit weird as a space shuttle. But admittedly, part of that is probably because of the design deco they went with. If you saw the Japanese release in the more realistic, like normal Earth colors, it actually looks a lot more solid and a lot more better for it. But the off-white and the purple work too. It's very Decepticon-y. And then you get to the locomotive mode, which again, you wouldn't see a locomotive in purple, but it does look better and more cohesive than the shuttle mode, and it doesn't suffer the kibble issues and this is the other parts of the vehicle type issue that the shuttle mode does suffer from. So it's the better of the two alt modes visually. And again, if you get it in all black, ooh, it's pretty. Oh, it's pretty. And then we get to the robot mode. Now, I will admit, like, Astro Train is one of those where he doesn't suffer too much in robot mode for those two vehicle modes, which is incredibly impressive. Outside of the dinky little arms. Did you know that in the original prototype for Astro Train, the arms could actually slide down and not be so out of proportion? Yes, this toy was originally going to look better than it did. It's why you can see the cut in the arms between the forearm and the shoulder. So, unfortunately, this toy was going to be better. And if they had done it in more standard colors to make the two vehicle modes look a little bit more solid, a little bit more real-world disguisey, I might have put him higher up on the list. As it is, he's got his flaws, but you can't deny the triple changing aspect is just a lot of fun. And if you just accept it as his, the way his vehicles look, he doesn't suffer too much from it. I mean, it's a pretty all-around fun figure. A little bit of flaw here and there, but still, can't deny a good time. Here's where I let my bias show a little bit. I will fully admit, this is me playing favorites. But then again, it's a top 10 list. Of course I'm going to play favorites. That's the entire point. Let's talk Swoop. Alright, so I told you more than one Dinobots on the list. This is the other one that is going to crack the top 10. Oh, and it's cracking my top 5, no less. Let's just be honest, Swoop does it just a little bit better. Okay, fine, you can see his arms in the beast mode. I'm not really concerned on that. What I like about it is the fact that, okay, big chrome wings look awesome, number one. Number two, firing missile launchers that none of the other Dinobots got. Thanks to him being a little bit smaller, he gets to have a little bit more gimmick to him, and I'm sorry, but playing with your action figures as a kid, there's few things more fun than a bombing run with your flying toys. And this could pull it off. And then you just have this awesome looking robot mode. I love how Swoop looks in his robot mode. He also ends up being a lot cleaner than the other Dinobots. He doesn't have big shells hanging off of his back. He doesn't have tails hanging off of his legs or beast legs hanging off his arms. He's just a really solid, cool robot that lets the dino parts of him influence and stylize his robot mode. And that makes him look really, really good. Still weird how the cartoon decided to make him blue instead of red, because that's the original coloring. Not, the Dinobot one is a little bit more consistent in the toys. That aside, I do find him more fun as an action figure than Grimlock. If you can find one intact, admittedly, it's kind of hard to do. But if you can, yeah, this is my favorite Dinobot. I will admit there's some bias to that, but I just think he's the best toy overall. If you've been at this channel longer than a few months, then you probably know that this character was going to come up eventually. You were probably just wondering where it was going to come up. Is TJ just going to put him at number 1 and just, make this, completely one-sided and biased? I will play fair. We will put Blitzwing at number 4. I will be honest, the toy does have its flaws. This is the triple changer that suffers in the robot mode more than some of the others. I don't think the robot necessarily looks bad. It's definitely of its time, though. And yeah, like, compared to, like, Tiny Arm Astro Train, you can debate which one looks better and which one doesn't. But still, I don't think it looks terribly bad. I kind of like how bulky he looks. And then you get to the vehicle modes, and yes, they are going to show through a little bit of what else they turn into. Yeah, there's a nose cone stuck to the front of this tank. We realize this. The tank still looks really, really cool. I like the desert camo scheme. It'll separate him away from Brawl and Warpath later on. And then we get to the jet mode. And as a kid, I thought that extra bulk underneath was just, you know, I thought it was like a second set of wings. I thought that was the coolest thing, like a jet with 4 wings on it. No. It's just some kibble that happens to shape like a wing a little bit. So it's a little bit disappointing, a little bit upsetting when that reality busted for me. But I still think the jet manages to look really cool despite having some extra bulk that it has to deal with. Yeah, the vehicle modes suffer a little bit, but unlike Astro Train, I think the vehicles are, one, just cooler for a Decepticon. I mean, perfect choices. A tank and a jet, perfect for a Decepticon. And I think the colors look a lot more solid on these than they do on Astro Train's alt modes, which makes me, like, see them a little bit more solid and together compared to him. So based on that, and based on just having more fun vehicles in general, I put him higher up than Astro Train on the overall list. And yes, I'm admitting, my favorite G1 Decepticon. And yeah, I still love the toy. Maybe this should be a few notches lower, but you know what? It's my list. If you want him to be lower, make one of your own. Going to admit right now, my top 3, probably a lot less objective. If you know the 85 lineup of Transformers, the top 3 are gonna be pretty obvious. It's just a matter of who ended up where. So at number 3, we're gonna talk Shockwave. So this is another one of the borrowed molds that Hasbro needed. He did appear in the first episode of the cartoon, but they waited till 1985 to launch him because, you know, multiple gun toys on the market at once. Probably not the best idea. But this one, quite a bit different than Megatron. Number 1, laser gun. I think it's already cooler than the Walther P-38. Much as I think Megatron's the best toy of 84 because of how much it can do and the natural play value of being able to run around and just shoot around a toy gun. I think I almost call him Laser Wave. My brain said Laser Beak, and now I'll go back to Shockwave. Wow. Okay, I didn't wake up enough today. I should cut that out. I'm not going to. It's funny. So Shockwave himself is just a better gun. And the fact that he is an electronic gun, that he actually has lights and sound effects, makes him a little bit cooler to play with than Megatron. And then the robot mode just looks better. I mean, aside from, yeah, Decepticon Purple, it's a more imposing, much stronger looking figure than Megatron is. He still has a thin leg thing that Megatron does, but it's not nearly as spindly. I mean, he looks a lot more solid, a lot more cleaned up too. Like, it's just overall a better toy of a toy gun that turns into a robot. You know, I feel like if the head was a little bit more distinct and a little bit more interesting, I feel like this could have been a strong contender for Megatron's normal, like the actual Megatron toy. But it is what it is. Shockwave on his own, yeah. In the modern day, hard to come by because fragile bean. But if you can find him and if he still works, he's a lot of fun. He is a lot of fun, you know, and definitely I think deserves to be in the top 3 on any list of 85 toys. One of the biggest things for Transformers in 1985 is that while there's this huge boom and demand for more from this franchise, Hasbro didn't have any big ticket item. They didn't have that thing that was the big seller at Christmas time. That one toy that parents will only splurge on one time of the year. So Hasbro had to go outside of the company in order to do it, and that meant we got Omega Supreme, what we consider the first city bot, even though he didn't really turn into a city. He's a launch platform, and tank on a track. But that does make him extremely different from the rest of the Transformers lineup and gives him some interesting play value. This is a toy that survived entirely on its electronic features, whether it's the tank rolling around on the track and, doing laps around the rocket base, or the robot mode, which can walk very, very slowly, but walk nevertheless. Add in some decent articulation in the arms for its time and a very unique look, and you do have a very strong and unique piece in the Transformers lineup that was worthy of asking Santa for come December. Now, admittedly, it does break the standard formula of a Transformer in that it is very much a part former. A lot of this toy disassembles and then reassembles into its alternate mode. But keep in mind, this was 1985. That standard hadn't really been set in stone yet, so this is entirely valid. There's absolutely nothing wrong with him doing it at this time. It makes for an exceptionally unique bot, and one that, unless you get the reissue, is again hard to find in working condition. But it does stand out as an extremely unique piece in Transformers, to the point where even today, people are wondering, when's the next Omega Supreme? Or if you're certain people on this website, Omega Supreme, but we don't talk about them. As we get to number 1, I kind of realize this list might be controversial in that 2 of my top 3 figures on this list were not made by Hasbro or Takara. They were brought in from other toy companies. They are figures that were designed elsewhere and with the outside of like weird coincidence with Omega Supreme, can't really be used by Hasbro anymore because, the molds aren't theirs. So, for number 1, this might come as a bit of a shock, but all 3 of my top 3 didn't originate from Takara. We need to talk Jetfire. Okay, so this is a Bandai Valkyrie from Macross. Like, we know where the origins come from. We know the whole Harmony Gold situation. Let's just kind of discuss it as a toy. Now, the toy itself, of course, the Macross Valkyries are very, very good transforming jet toys. Aside from just being able to become a really cool-looking, realistic, real-world jet, you also have all the boosters and the armor that you can attach on to create a more fantasy jet that looks absolutely awesome. Okay, so similar to Roadbuster, we have a lot of additional parts that add to the play value of the overall package. And then you get to the robot mode. The robot mode is freaking sweet. The red, white, and black hit so hard on this design. It looks so good. So good. You got the armor that's removable. You got a really cool cannon weapon. You got the flight pack in the back. That just makes him stand out so well. Gives him a great silhouette. Like, between the horns and the flight pack, he's just like oozing in like original character here. Even with a visor and faceplate mouth, he's still just oh my god, he's so good looking. He's such a good looking toy. And articulate. Man, Macross Valkyries were so articulated for the time. You got universal shoulders, you got elbows. I believe he has an elbow rotation. What? In 1985? Even the legs have hips and knees. Like, in the neck articulate. It's just, there's no contest. There is no contest here. The 3 best Transformers of 1985 were all produced outside of Takara. It's weird coincidence how that happens to work out, but you know what? Good is good, and the Macross Valkyries are exceptionally good toys, and it just so happens one of them was Jetfire. So, there is the opinion. Jetfire is my number 1 toy of 1985. As usual with these lists, it is all down to my personal opinion and tastes. You are free to disagree in the comment section below, and I know some people are going to, but that's all up to you. For me, that's the list. Thank you everyone for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.